Hello, and welcome to the second episode in season two of A Conversation with Carl. Remember to like and subscribe for the latest content. Today, AI technologies is redefining business leadership and the workforce. To discuss the changing world, we are very excited to welcome Louisa Lauren to the conversation. Louisa has led transformative growth across some of the world's most respected companies, including Diego and Google. For more than 2 decades, Louisa has been at the intersection of commercial impact and human-centered change. Louisa is the author of Leadership Anatomy in Motion. Welcome, Louisa Lauren, to the conversation.
Thank you so much, Carl. Great to be here.
So as we get started, let me ask the first question is, what is AI?
Well, I think the concept of artificial intelligence is really, really broad. And I know a lot of people who spent their careers in machine learning or other form of data insights and data science who really don't like that us people who were not born in that world talk about that. But I would say, well, all intents and purposes, the most important thing is that it is not human intelligence, it's artificial intelligence. So it is coded, it is and gives you an answer in that sense. And therefore, I think it's important to look at it in a really broad way and acknowledge that most people still have a misconception of AI as being a conversational generator, such as we know from ChatGPT or Gemini, when in fact it is much more.
So when you say it's much more, can you describe what is it?
Yeah, I think the favorite example I often use because everyone knows it is Google Maps. So we get in our car, it almost always knows where we're going, either because we have routines and patterns or because we have it in our calendar, and it can tell us where to get there. So the guidance of saying you should make that turn in order to avoid this traffic, or you should be aware that this is a more eco-friendly route, or if you're taking a train and public transportation, here are your options. That is also artificial intelligence that has been coded with the insight of global traffic, of satellite information, but also decisions that someone has told it that actually this is a better option than the other one because it is likely to cause more problems. So this is just one example that everyone knows, where it is not just, let's say, every answer served back at you, but someone has decided the outcome of this. And I think what this example just tells us is it's that these decisions of deciding, if I ask X, it gives me Z. There are people making these decisions today. And of course, Google Maps has that access to information. And I worked very closely with that team when I was at Google. I know they are doing a phenomenal job. But today, in every single industry, there are great people and also not great people making these decisions on behalf of us. So imagine, let's say, you have a conversation about a diagnostic, some health issues or well-being, and you're thinking, I'm worried about this, should I be doing this? I'm not talking only deadly serious, but also just, let's say, which muscle exercises should I be doing for my age? It will give you recommendations that someone will have coded and someone will have decided, but there is no guarantee that that person is the best placed in the world to give you those answers. So that's why
So
I want to make sure that when we talk about AI, it's not just volume of feedback, it's also predefined business decisions that are being served back to you as recommendations.
So that becomes an issue because I'll look up stuff on Google, as we were talking about, and when I look it up, it will give me exercises to do or things to do, and then I don't know who's that person that coded it. But that computer also doesn't know who I am, what exercise I should be doing. I should talk to a trainer. I should talk to someone who knows more than me just doing exercises.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I want to highlight this. However, chances are that that AI knows more than the other person that you could have asked. So the alternative is you could have gone to a friend, you could have gone to a trainer at your local gym, and that person has maybe been on a 3-week course, or they may have spent their life doing it. We don't know. So the point is just that you have access to more information, but you need to be very, very conscious of those who decide the recommendation. What are their motivations? And do they have enough information about you for you to trust that answer or not? Because sometimes you, just like Google Maps, want the best information for the world. And other times when it comes to, let's say, physical training, you want a very specific answer and you want to make sure that it spent enough time getting to know you and your physique and your conditions, your history, and all these type of things. And now we're of course talking about it from a consumer perspective, but as you can imagine, if we talk about big global supply chains or if we talk about manufacturing facilities, etc., do you want your own company to come up with all the business rules and say, this is what you should be doing because this is what we've always done in my factory? Or would you rather say, thank you, someone, for looking at all factories that are similar to mine and giving me this recommendation? And I think that's what's going to happen the next couple of years, that those who have access to a lot of information can bring to the market a stronger recommendation, but we can also then become either conveniently served by it or a commodity that has to adhere to whatever recommendation is given.
But isn't that not letting us lead into the future because we're staying at the status quo, right? We're not looking at, if I'm looking at 10 factories and 10 factories all do the same type of work, and I'm like, okay, this is how it's done. But wouldn't you need to also use that information and then be able to think, okay, we could do it differently and it might land us.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's the benefit of something like this era, where it would be an AI that you could have a conversation with, you could feed it additional information, versus the era of the uh, 1990s or 2000s, start of the 2000s, where it was a piece of software that was coded by someone. And once you kind of integrated that in your operation, it was a lot of hard work and change management programs to change anything. And maybe the company didn't want to invest in that upgrade. So now you have the ability to continuously learn together. But as said, you can then decide, is this something where I want to follow the average? In which case, jump on that train, get it implemented, make sure you're not left behind. Or is it the core of your proposition? Is it your identity? In which case, you maybe should not just follow the market and give it to everyone else. You should maybe be the one that defines this future. Right now, a lot of people are defining the future, but we often see that small startups play with these AI tools faster than the big ones, and they come up with brilliant solutions that can't be deployed into operations, where in fact we need the expertise of the big guys to be shaping the future and be very aware of what is there and what is not. So I can tell you, I was working with a large player in the aviation industry. They implemented an optimization server that was significantly ahead of anything in the industry, and they were able to prove it with both their ROI and their profitability of this airline, but also with the customer satisfaction. All their competitors wanted to talk to them. All of them acknowledged that this was best class. The debate was, of course, what do you do with this fact? Do you want to buy it from your competitor? Do they want to even sell it to you? Is it lifting the entire industry, or do you want to spend, let's say, the next couple of years just being in the lead? And right now, we don't have that many industries who have kind of defined who's leading in this space, but we will see that happening. And it may not be those who has the best expertise. It may be those who just happen to have most money or most data scientists connected to them.
But isn't that dangerous? Because doesn't that keeps us in a status quo situation instead of leading us forward?
Well, it does if we sit and are afraid of it. And that's why I think it's really important to differentiate, like what are your core tasks, and be very strategic about them. The areas that are not differentiating for your business, lean in, start using it all the time. So document access, lots of, let's say, people management from an HR operation perspective, of course, not from an engagement perspective, lots of financial elements, all the things that can be documented, go get them AI'd, if that's even a word, quite quickly. But from a strategic perspective, find out where you make your money today and where you will make your money in your future. Because as this airline example, if you have a broad enough network, you may not have an incentive to roll this out to the world. However, if you are a great, brilliant mind, but with a low network, chances are you will reposition yourself and find a greater role in the future by moving into selling this and lifting the market with you.
You talk a lot about leadership, that it's not AI that would be to blame for replacing workers, but bad leadership.
Mm.
Can you explain that?
Well, I think, first of all, the last couple of years, we've seen interesting behavior, right? AI came to the market, or let's say came to people's awareness. It was not new, right? But it came to people's
Yeah.
awareness. And a lot of people went, oh my God, it's going to take away my job. What am I going to do? All the executives said, let me quickly get some consultants in and talk about what can this do? How can we transform? And huge numbers were shown of the potential of this. But in my opinion, a lot of those conversations were wrong because they were driven from a point of fear instead of saying, actually, this is a tool that we can implement and I can deploy it into my organization effectively. But anyone who's been driven by that fear has said, actually, either how do I put it in an environment where I measure it as it was an old deliverable, so a completion task, instead of saying this is a new form of calculator, this is a new form of sum tool, and we will spend time learning to use it continuously. And with that, we'll start with some super simple use cases, but we will work our way so that it is something that everyone feels very comfortable with. As a leader, chances are, if you've done this well and you've given your organization access to these tools, it's not about you coming and saying, this is what I expect you to deliver next month. It's your organization coming and saying, because I now have access to all this information with my AI tool, I'm going to surprise you with this positive element. And that's where we've seen the best businesses actually step ahead if the leaders have given the space to it. So access to tools, create a space where people can learn. So probably do it internally first, not externally, because that may have risks associated with it. But you as a leader then also saying, I stand strong on this strategic direction, but I welcome you to contribute with solutions towards it.
How are you received when you show up at a company? She's here to take my job away, or is she here to help me do a better job?
Well, I think at the end of the meeting, definitely the latter. I think the point is that most people who engage in these type of conversations come and say, this is what I want to sell you, where I'm more the anti-selling first and saying, okay, let's just talk about what you have. Who are you? What do you want to protect? And how do we nurture that? How do we work on a culture where people can actually effectively use these tools? And then afterwards, we go into saying, what tools do you have? Most often, it's simple
Mhm.
things like, okay, do you have a platform to connect information? And here I'm not just talking about like data access. I'm talking about, do people talk to each other? Do people go from one department to the other? Do they know how actually they could do things better together? So second thing is a data access culture, a culture where people are willing to and allowed to ask questions about each other, because this is what the AI will come back and give you recommendations that you would have not seen where it came from, right? So a lot of people, they look at this and they go, that's not true. The AI is giving me the wrong answer. No, you just didn't see the input that it has listened to because you never before walked down the hallway and asked your colleague who was holding on to that information before. So the data access, sorry, the platform to connect, the data access culture, and then on top, you decide which AI models are the right ones for you to use. So when they do invite me in, there are a lot of journeys of, oh my God, this is scary, to, oh, okay, no, actually I can handle this because this is known tools. It's actually often things that CEO does really well, like core proposition, communication, all these types of things. But then I think that the most important point is that they acknowledge that it's about them redefining themselves. It's a very different form of leadership than which procurement exercise should I do to get the best transactional deal.
Yes. So when you're looking at businesses now, how do you see AI impacting businesses in the next decade?
Well, I think
Uh,
that we've already touched a little bit
yeah.
about this. The point is that the world is moving with these tools. The consumers are moving with these tools. Investments are moving with these tools. So if you are a leader who represents a piece of business knowledge, you have the option to get on that train and be part of shaping that future or be left behind. So that's why I'm heavily advocating and inviting people to actually be conscious in their engagement and not just say, I'll use the tools that are mostly available.
How do you think business schools should be teaching their students about AI? Like if you're going to go get your MBA and you're about to come into the workforce.
Yeah, no, I have to be on the board of Copenhagen Business School, which is fortunately, despite being a small part of the world, one of the top 20 business schools in the world. So very, very proud of that. And I love the dialogues we have there, but also with other business schools. I think the most important thing in a business school context, and remember, not a technical programming school context, is to look at how does this change, for instance, financing models, business models, etc. Because in a world of AI, your exchange in your network or ecosystem, call it whatever you want, is likely to be data. So if you are shaping a model or your partner is shaping a model, you will be exchanging information with them. And how do you charge for that? Which contracts do you sign? All these type of things are really important from a business school perspective to look at. This then also, of course, goes into the space of what's your responsibility? Which ethics do you need to apply? And especially in a world where, let's say, polarization is making things a lot harder for us, how do we actually make sure that we don't look at that environment and become afraid to exchange our information, but become aware of what is a business run in this world? I can give you an example because, as you know, I grew up in the world of Diageo and Merck, so very traditional, and Mort Hennessy, traditional companies with hundreds of years of legacy, all very, very good companies. And then I spent time in Google and a lot of time with Google's customers. The business models are significantly different. So the mindset of saying, actually, how do I generate value from the product I have, be it a physical, let's say, bottle of champagne or a vessel that you need to load cargo onto, versus saying, I have a piece of technology, I'm going to put it out in the world. And the more this platform grows, the more other people use it, the greater the value to me is. And that's what we're seeing. A lot of the technology companies now are not growing from their own assets, but because they are building platforms that other people are growing on top of. If you are in a traditional organization, let's say a CFO there, that is a very different way of looking at your growth trajectory, and for some, very, very uncomfortable. So from a business school perspective, understanding how do you deploy that new way of thinking, how do you understand the motivations of those in your ecosystem is absolutely essential. And knowing that most business leaders, by count, still grew up in that old traditional world that I described. So you can't come out from business school saying, I've cracked the code, I know exactly what it is, because chances are your boss is from that other world. And it is your responsibility to build the bridge to understand how he thinks or she thinks. And probably there is an incumbent dilemma of saying, I need to protect this profit. I want to make sure that I'm moving with and protecting that market. But I acknowledge that profit is being made in a different way now.
Do legacy companies land up surviving this, or is this all going to be tech companies that are going to take over?
So fortunately, I am a believer that legacy companies will survive it, but it's not going to be all of them. There will for sure be some that fold. But I'll give you an example. I was working on a supply chain solution product at Google, and we were developing basically the ability to operate your supply chain in a significantly more agile way. So we helped companies connect their own enterprise data, their private data, with the data in their community, the ecosystem, with public data signals. So let's say droughts or local newspapers, etc. So it was very helpful to them because all of a sudden they didn't just have to call their supplier or wait for an email to say something was late, but they were able to, 3 levels down, read local newspapers, let's say in Vietnam, where a community was saying there's likely to be a strike. So they were able to operate ahead of the market. So we did this for the automotive industry, and it was very successful, and they were able to reduce our inventory significantly and move ahead of the market in this instance with something that I would say was significantly stronger than what their competitors were doing at the point in time. And of course, Google were grateful to be able to deliver this, and it was recognized as product of the year, all these great things. However, Google stopped it. And people are like, oh my God, how could they stop it? It was a huge success and everyone was happy with it. But it makes sense because in this instance, the knowledge that was required to code this, to have it to be relevant for an automotive industry, was not something that Google possessed. So of course, there were experts in automotive and we could all give recommendations and steer it, but that we would never be the best people to understand an automotive supply chain. So once again, the people who leaned in, used the tools the right way, partnered to understand how to deploy it, got that significant advantage, and held the power to actually say, I can change this industry. In this
So,
instance, the
yeah.
company was at a significant size and they can still reap the benefit from it versus the other one where they had to make a faster decision. But now we are seeing that either the big industry leaders need to step up and do this, or we are seeing in a few industries, actually in automotive, there are some players, let's say the Bosches of the world, that are playing that middle layer. But in most industries, we do need the big incumbents to step up and do this. So you see a lot of the same in retail. You see a big split between those who have invested in the technology early on and those who have relied on partners solely.
We're talking about is trust. And I want to know how we trust the coder, the person who's putting in all this information. I'm in the car and I'm following Google Maps. I completely trust Google Maps over, okay, I'll get off here. I don't know why they want me to go on the side road, but I completely trust them. And I think that that becomes an issue sometimes is we don't know who to trust when we're getting this information.
Yeah.
So how do we build on that trust?
Yeah, no, I fully understand that trust is something to be extra aware of in this time, but I don't think it is principally different from any other, let's say, sphere of the world. We trust information, we read newspapers, we read information on the internet, and we trust it. But I think it is healthy that we all get better at understanding where did it come from and what are the motivation of those who have served us this answer. I do think that that training that both in students, in life, in anything is very, very healthy. And I think it's important that as leaders, we don't move this into a space where people are afraid to say and do anything. There is a huge risk that people over exaggerate what that trust, let's say, limitation could be, and therefore they do not do anything. But in a world where others are actually doing something, that just means you're getting off the train and not participating anymore. So I think as a leader, this acknowledgement of saying, I will still be relevant in the future, but I will need to change. I will be curious about what's going on. I will listen. I will partner. I will include and I will exclude, and I am not afraid to make those decisions, let's say, on a continuous basis. So I'm able to prioritize and make sure that I shape my own future. I think it's a lot about taking control, not in a, let's say, holding on sense, but being curious and therefore thereafter decisive.
How has AI changed your life?
Well, I think I'm generally a very curious and open person, and I'm happy to learn and try. I've been fortunate to be surrounded by people who can go much deeper in the technology, and where I may ask the questions and they can help understand what it could pay back. I always want more. I want to understand, why did it do this? Why did it give me that answer? And there are some things that I've learned to do myself. I can't code, but I can ask a model to code for me, which is a huge leap forward. I'm also not the type of person who gets frustrated because I ask it to do a image and it is a bad image. Chances are, if I had done that in the days where I needed to do PowerPoint presentations, my first PowerPoint slide would have been super ugly as well. But if I am crystal clear on what is the message and the objective I need to get through, then I can also use these tools just like any other tool. So I think it hones me. It hones me to be sharper, be aware where I'm decisive and where I'm open and curious. So I would say I'm just bringing it into a open mindset, but very aware that I don't trust any answer that comes back. It's my responsibility to choose the right thing.
Where do you see us with AI in 10 years? Or is that too big a question? How do you see us in a year?
As I said, I think it really depends on which business leaders lean in to shape the answers that will decide our future. That is the key point, I would say, for the next 2 to 5 months, 5 years. Because if we only see tech leaders define the future, then a lot of the expertise, the heritage, the knowledge, also some of the culture will be gone. Where right now we have an opportunity for the people who sit on this knowledge to actually deploy the tools and shape the future. So I see two scenarios: that great leaders bring it in, shape the future with the tools. Other scenario, they don't. They either don't dare, are afraid, or can't, are not open, in which case we will end up in a world of convenience but lower quality.
When I go to the doctor, he has an AI technology with him, and he says it's going to record this conversation and will record for his notes. And that he says
Right.
it'll give him recommendations. I'm coming to the doctor because I trust the doctor. Yeah.
I firmly believe you should. I would be
Yes.
curious about which models he is using. So is he running it onto the global internet and saying what you do? Or is he in an environment where other experienced doctors that are also trusted have their expertise being fed into too? Because chances are your doctor has not seen every type of scenario in the world. So him actually getting this as a second opinion is great and what will help the world learn faster and better. But it comes back to you make your decision to trust an individual. He makes his decision to trust a platform and he continuously feeds it. So in an ideal world, everyone is better off, but there are those decisions on the way. And in this instance, I would say good for him. And I'm really glad he's doing this. And ask him, I said, which platform is it? Who else is inputting to it? Which critical lens is he
Mhm.
deploying to it? And what happens when he disagrees? So does he go back and debate it? Does he say, actually, this is why it was wrong? Because it needs to learn. It will not learn if he only takes it one way.
Yeah, that's a great point. What happens when he disagrees?
Yeah.
Because this is what I keep saying when I hear about AI and the doctor. I want to trust my doctor. I don't want to trust a computer because the computer doesn't know me. And as we started, like it doesn't know what my body is, doesn't know anything about me. It just knows I'm a number.
But at the same
Yeah.
time, something like health is so heavily dependent on diagnostics, visuals, skin visuals, x-rays, all these type of things. And getting that data ingested into models that can look at much more detail and look at greater patterns is hugely valuable. If you then also have wearables, let's say a smartwatch or a ring that tells you, actually getting ahead of health is a huge opportunity, not just for you as an individual, but for society and for cost. We all know that preventive disease management is significantly better for everyone, but one of the challenges we have is who's going to pay for that upfront investment because it's not the same people who will make the money off it, right? There is an
Yeah.
industry benefiting from the treatments today, and it's not the same people that would benefit if we all were healthier and got ahead of it. So we are in this catch right now where, once again, it depends on whether people lean in and shape the models in the right way.
As we start to wrap up, is there anything about AI strategies that you want to add that I haven't asked that we should have asked?
Yeah, well, I would say for me, this is about a behavior. It is a approach. It is a way of looking at opportunity and change. And that's why I also brought a book to market, A Leadership Anatomy in Motion. And it really talks about how do you envision, how do you expand your mind, how do you become curious about what could be your opportunity. Secondly, how do you then expand in with curiosity and partner and collaborate? How do you bring in these differences of opinion to shape your opinion? Thirdly, how do you steer with decisiveness? How do you prioritize? How do you communicate? How do you step forward as that leader? And last and most importantly, how do you embody that change? You could see all of these words I use are very, very human because I firmly believe that it's all about oneself, actually deploying the capabilities and behaviors one has within you to feel comfortable in this change, to step forward in this change. So we are able to shape that future with AI that we are all hoping for. So I would say train it. Don't, let's say, be afraid of it and be aware that this is a set of behaviors that you can use for small decisions or huge industry transforming change. They repeat themselves and only get better every time you use them.
The book is the Leadership Anatomy in Motion. You can
Hmm.
get that where you get your books. Louisa, Lauren, thank you so much for joining me today. And thank you out there as well for listening. And remember, be safe. And until next time.